The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Starship Horizon. John Miller stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the approach to the massive space station. This was it. First contact with the Galactic Council. "Commander Miller, they're hailing us," said Amy Porter, her voice steady despite the tension everyone felt. John nodded. "Put them through." The screen flickered to life, showing a being with pale blue skin and large, thoughtful eyes. "Horizon, this is Galactic Council Station Alpha. You are cleared for docking in Bay 14. Representatives will meet you upon arrival." "Acknowledged, Station Alpha," John replied. "We're looking forward to it." As the communication ended, he turned to his crew. 5 humans chosen to represent Earth to the stars. They had trained for years for this moment, ever since the Council probe had arrived in Earth's orbit with an invitation. "Well, people," John said with a small smile, "let's make a good first impression." The docking went smoothly. When the airlock doors opened, John led his team into a vast chamber where 7 different alien species waited in a semicircle. The air smelled strange, clean but with hints of something like cinnamon and ozone. A tall, thin being stepped forward. "I am High Counselor Exalveth of the Varex. We welcome humans to galactic space." John bowed slightly. "Thank you, High Counselor. I am Commander John Miller of Earth. We are honored to be here." The formal introductions continued. Each species was distinct. The Norai with their 4 arms and colorful skin patterns, the muscular Dularian standing nearly 8 feet tall, the ancient crony whose silvery skin seemed to shimmer with age. The council members led them to a meeting chamber with a large round table. John noticed how each species sat apart from the others, maintaining clear separation. "For 10,000 years, Galveth began, the Galactic Council has maintained peace among the stars. Each member brings unique strengths. The Varex are unmatched in mathematics and precision engineering. The Norai create art that can move beings to tears across language barriers. The Zethka," she gestured to the armored, reptilian beings, "provide military protection for all Council worlds." One of the Zethka leaned forward. "What we wish to know, Commander Miller, is what humans do better than any other species." John hadn't expected such a direct question. He hesitated. "Our scans of your planet show you've barely mastered nuclear fusion," continued the Zethka. "Your ships are slow, your weapons primitive, your lifespans short. We're adaptable," offered Linda Ray, the team's biologist. "Humans can live in many environments." "The Dularians survive on worlds with 3 times Earth's gravity," countered a crony elder. "The Irith breathe atmospheres toxic to most life." The council members looked at John and his team with something between curiosity and disappointment. His mind raced for an answer that would impress them. "Perhaps," John said carefully, "we don't yet know what humanity's greatest strength is. We're still discovering who we are among the stars." This brought murmurs around the table, some that sounded like laughter. "An honest answer, at least," said Exalveth. "The Council has voted to offer Earth probationary membership. You will have 6 months to establish an embassy and begin cultural exchange." "Thank you," John said, feeling both relief and worry. "We won't disappoint you." As they left the chamber, John's second-in-command, Ben Walsh, whispered, "That could have gone better." John nodded. "They see us as children. Maybe we are, compared to them." "So what do we do?" asked Amy. John looked back at the council chamber, where the different species were already separating into their own groups again. "We learn," he said simply. "We observe. And maybe we'll find out what humans truly do best." As they walked back to their ship, the massive viewports showed hundreds of alien vessels docked at the station. The galaxy was vast, filled with ancient civilizations and specialized species. Humanity was just taking its first steps among them. And no one, not even John Miller, could have predicted how important those steps would become. 6 months passed quickly. Earth's embassy on the Galactic Station became a busy place, with humans learning about the vast cultures of space. Kate Howard served as Earth's first ambassador, a job that kept her awake most nights. Today was no different as she hurried through the curved hallways toward an emergency council meeting. "They're all already inside," said Ben Walsh, now her chief aide, as she arrived at the grand doors. Kate nodded, straightened her formal jacket, and walked in. The council chamber fell silent as she took her seat at the probationary members' table, slightly lower than the full council members. Vzalveth stood at the center. 3 Aerith colony worlds have been attacked without warning. Thousands are dead. The Zethka Empire has claimed responsibility. Shocked murmurs filled the room. The Zethka representative, General Kraz, sat with his armored arms crossed, showing no emotion. "The Zethka claim the colonies were built in disputed space," continued Axalveth. "They demand the immediate withdrawal of all non-Zethka presence from the Outer Rim sectors. This is outrageous." The Aerith representative's voice was high and musical even in anger. "Those colonies have existed for 200 years. Kate watched as the debate grew heated. The Aerith wanted immediate military action. The Dularians offered their strength but wanted command authority. The crony suggested patience and negotiation. No one could agree on a response. "The Council has protocols for this," said Axalveth, trying to restore order. "Each species may contribute forces under their own command. We will coordinate through secure channels." "That won't work," Kate said, before she could stop herself. The room went silent. All eyes turned to her. "Ambassador Howard," Vzalveth said coolly, "probationary members may observe but not speak during security matters." Kate stood. "I apologize for the breach of protocol, but I studied your historical records. The Zethka have done this before, 300 years ago, with the Nurai colonies. They attacked isolated worlds one by one. The Council responded exactly as you're planning now, with separate forces that never coordinated properly." The Nurai representative nodded slowly. "She speaks truth. We lost 7 worlds before the Council finally pushed them back." Kate continued, feeling more confident. "The Zethka are counting on your divisions. Each species acting alone, protecting their own interests. They know you won't work together effectively." General Kraz stood, his scaled skin catching the light. "You know nothing of war, human. Your species has barely left its own solar system." "Actually," Kate replied, "humans know a lot about war. It's one of our worst flaws. But we've also learned something from it. The strength of working together despite our differences." She pressed a button on her console, and a display appeared in the center of the chamber. "This is a proposal for a coalition force. Mixed crews, shared command, combining the strengths of multiple species on each ship." The display showed ships with modified life support sections and integrated command structures. The council members looked at it with expressions ranging from interest to disbelief. "Impossible," said General Kraz with a dismissive gesture. "Different species cannot function effectively in combat together. Specialists work alone." "With respect, General," Kate said, "that's exactly what the Zethka are counting on." A long silence followed. Finally, Vzalveth spoke. "This has never been attempted. The differences in atmosphere requirements alone would make such ships unwieldy. Humans have been creating environments for different needs on our own world," Kate explained. "We can help design the modifications. Earth will offer our ships as the first test cases." "And who would command these coalition vessels?" asked the Dularian representative. Kate took a deep breath. "I suggest humans as the bridge officers, not because we're better commanders, but because we're new. We have no old grudges or biases. We can be neutral coordinators." More silence. Then, surprisingly, the crony elder spoke. "In 10,000 years, this approach has never been tried. Perhaps that is reason enough to consider it now." As the debate continued, Kate sat down, her heart racing. She had just committed humanity to a dangerous gamble. Whether it would save lives or cost them remained to be seen. Captain Sam Turner had never seen anything like the inside of the Unity. The Earth vessel had been quickly rebuilt with sections for 7 different species. He walked through the human part of the ship toward the bridge, nodding at crew members as he passed. "Captain on deck," announced the communications officer as he entered. The bridge was a marvel of compromise. Different atmospheric bubbles allowed each species to breathe their own air while working together. Sam had spent weeks studying the crew files, trying to understand the beings he would lead. "Status report," he said. His second-in-command, Vela of the Narai, turned all 4 of her arms in a gesture of mild frustration. "Life support is functioning at 83% efficiency. The Dularian section is still too cold." "I'll speak with engineering," Sam replied. "Any word from the other coalition ships?" "The Star Reach and the Promise are both reporting similar issues," said Diane Carter at Communications. "It's to be expected, Captain. No one has ever tried to make ships work for multiple species before." Sam nodded and sat in the command chair. This experiment had to work. 3 more Aerith colonies had been attacked in the week since the council meeting. The Zethka were moving fast, counting on the council's slow response. "Captain," rumbled a deep voice from the engineering station's atmospheric bubble. "These designs make no sense." Sam walked over to Chief Engineer Grak, a massive Dularian with skin like stone. "What's the problem, Chief?" Grak pointed at the display. "Humans have built 3 separate systems for life support. 3. It wastes space and power. 1 is sufficient." "And if that one fails?" Sam asked. Grak looked confused. "Then we fix it. And if you can't fix it in time, then we die," Grak said simply. "That is how things work." Sam smiled slightly. "Humans prefer backup plans. We call it redundancy." "It is inefficient," Grak insisted. "Because things break," Sam explained, showing Grak the backup life support system. "And when they do, we adapt." Grak made a rumbling sound that might have been disagreement but returned to his work. The first week was worse than Sam had imagined. Different sleep cycles meant the ship was always partly staffed and partly at rest. The Norai ate foods that made humans sick just from the smell. The Aerith moved so quickly that they seemed impatient with everyone else. Worst of all, each species had their own way of following orders. The Varex questioned everything, wanting to understand the mathematical reasoning. The Crony moved slowly, considering all possible outcomes before acting. After a particularly difficult shift, Sam sat alone in his quarters, wondering if Kate Howard's idea had been a mistake. His door chimed. "Enter," he called. Vela came in, ducking her tall frame through the human-sized door. "Captain, I must speak plainly. This ship cannot function as it is." Sam sighed. "I know we're having difficulties." "The crew does not understand why you ask so many questions," Vela interrupted. "A Norai captain gives orders. A Dularian captain demands strength. You ask how we feel about assignments. You want to know our opinions." Sam leaned back in his chair. "That's how humans work best, Vela. We share ideas. We listen." "It is strange," she said, "but I have noticed something. When the Varex and Dularians argued about the shield configurations, you did not choose one plan over the other. I asked them to explain their ideas to each other," Sam said. "They came up with a better solution together than either had alone." Vela's skin shifted color slightly, showing surprise. "This is not how specialists normally work. We excel in our areas. We do not mix." Sam stood up and walked to the small viewport, looking at the stars. "That's what I've been thinking about. Humans aren't the best at anything specific. We're decent at lots of things. Maybe that lets us see connections others miss." Vela was quiet for a moment. "The Zethka have been detected near the Aerith colony of New Dawn. We will arrive in 2 days. If your theory about humans is correct, Captain Turner, we will need this connection seeing soon." After she left, Sam stared at the crew manifest on his screen. 27 different species, all specialists in their fields, all used to working alone. But maybe, just maybe, they could become something more together than they ever were apart. The Unity dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Irith colony of New Dawn. Immediately, alarms began to sound across the bridge. 5 Zethka warships detected, reported the Varex sensor operator. They are attacking the orbital station. Ground bombardment has already begun. Sam gripped the arms of his command chair. Battle stations. Shields up. The crew moved with purpose, despite their differences. 2 days of intensive drills had helped them find a rhythm together. We are outnumbered, Vela pointed out. The other coalition ships are still 3 hours away. The colony won't last 3 hours, Sam replied. Signal the Zethka. Tell them a Galactic Council vessel is ordering them to cease fire immediately. The message was sent. The response came quickly. They say we have no authority here, Diane reported. They're laughing at us, Stir. They call us the Ship of Misfits. Sam smiled grimly. Let's show them what Misfits can do. Tactical. Target the lead ship's weapons systems only. The Unity moved forward, its weapons firing precisely. The lead Zethka ship turned to meet the challenge, clearly unimpressed by a single opponent. They're firing, shouted the tactical officer. The Unity shook violently as energy blasts struck its shields. Shield strength down to 60%, reported Grack from engineering. Their weapons are stronger than we anticipated. 2 more Zethka ships broke away from the colony to join the attack. Energy beams crisscrossed space, most hitting the Unity's failing shields. We can't take much more of this, Vela warned. Another blast rocked the ship. Sparks flew from a control panel, and smoke began to fill the human section of the bridge. Main weapons are offline, reported the tactical officer. Primary power failing. Sam looked around at his diverse crew. They had come so far in such a short time, but it wasn't enough. The Zethka had centuries of military experience. Then he noticed Diane Carter staring intently at her console. Captain, she said suddenly, I have an idea. It's not in any tactical manual, but... I'm listening, Sam said. The Zethka ships all use the same communication frequency. If we redirect power from the ship's atmospheric generators into the shield grid and tune the shields to match that frequency, we could create a feedback loop that would disrupt their systems. The Varex officer blinked all 4 eyes. That is not how shields function. Not normally, Diane agreed. But our shields were designed with Aerith technology, which is sensitive to communication wavelengths. Sam looked at his engineer. Grack, could it work? The Dularian considered. It crosses systems that are not meant to interact. It is human thinking. His stone-like face shifted into what might have been a smile. I can make the connections. Do it, Sam ordered. The next few minutes were tense as Grack worked with Diane to reconfigure the shields. The Unity took 2 more hits, bringing shield strength down to 15%. Ready, Captain, Grack finally reported. But we must get close to their formation for maximum effect. Sam nodded. Helm, take us right into the middle of their fleet. The Unity accelerated toward the surprised Zethka ships, which clustered together to concentrate their fire. Now, Sam ordered when they were in position. Grack activated the modified shield. It pulsed with energy, creating an expanding wave that washed over the Zethka vessels. Their lights flickered, and their weapons went dark. It worked, Diane exclaimed. Their systems are temporarily overloaded. They can't fire or maneuver. Send a message to the colony, Sam said. Tell them to evacuate the wounded immediately. Then target the Zethka engines. I want them disabled, not destroyed. As the Unity's secondary weapons disabled the enemy ships one by one, Sam watched his crew work together with a new sense of unity. Captain, said Vela quietly beside him, no single species would have attempted this strategy. The Varex would have calculated the odds and retreated. The Dularians would have fought until destruction. But this, she gestured at the disabled Zethka ships. This was unexpected. Sam nodded. Sometimes the best solution isn't being the strongest or the smartest. It's seeing connections that no one else notices. News of the Unity's victory spread quickly through Council space. One ship had defeated 5 Zethka warships and saved thousands of colonists. And it had done so not through superior firepower, but through an unpredictable combination of different technologies and perspectives. The improbable had happened. Different species had worked together and won. 1 month after the battle at New Dawn, Admiral Frank Nelson stood before the Galactic Council. Behind him, a large display showed the positions of 20 coalition ships now patrolling Council space. The Zethka attacks had slowed but not stopped. "The coalition fleet is proving effective," Frank reported. "We've prevented attacks on 4 more colonies and established a defensive line along the outer rim." High Counselor Zelveth nodded. "Your mixed crews continue to perform beyond expectations. We wish to understand how." Frank smiled slightly. "I've been studying the battle reports. At first, I thought humans were succeeding as commanders because of some special talent, but that's not it at all." He pressed a button, and the display changed to show communication patterns between different species on the coalition ships. "Humans aren't commanding through superior skill," Frank explained. "We're connecting specialists and translating not just language but perspective. Watch what happens during battle situations." The display showed a simulation of crew interactions during combat. Lines connected different stations, with human crew members often serving as hubs between specialists who rarely communicated directly with each other. "Fascinating," murmured the crony elder. "The humans serve as bridges." "Exactly," Frank agreed. "We're mediators. Humans don't excel at any one thing because we evolved as generalists. We're adaptable, and we understand how to help others work together." The council members studied the display with interest. Even General Kraz of the Zethka seemed thoughtful, though he remained officially neutral in the conflict with his own species. The crony philosopher, Eternity, spoke slowly, her silvery skin catching the light. "Perhaps what humans do better than any species is see the potential in others." This statement created a buzz of conversation among the council. Frank let them talk, watching their reactions. Some seemed excited by the idea, others uncomfortable. Vizolveth raised a hand for silence. "This raises important questions about our future. For 10,000 years, the Council has valued specialization. Each species contributes their excellence in one area. Humans suggest a different approach entirely." "We're not trying to change your ways," Frank said quickly. "We're just offering a new perspective. One that has proven effective," noted the Aerith representative. "My people are alive because of it." As the council debated, an aide rushed in and whispered urgently to Frank. His face grew serious as he listened. "Counselors," he interrupted, "I've just received word that a massive Zethka fleet has been detected moving toward Council space. At least 50 warships, more than we've ever seen them deploy at once." The chamber went silent. "Their target?" asked Exalveth. Frank looked grim. "Long-range scans indicate they're on a direct course for Earth." The news hit the council like a physical blow. Earth was the newest, most vulnerable member world, with minimal defenses of its own. "Why Earth?" asked the Narai representative. "It holds no strategic value." General Kraz spoke for the first time. "They target the connectors. The Zethka Empire has watched these coalition ships succeed where individual species failed. They seek to cut off the head of this new approach before it can spread further." Frank nodded. "They want to eliminate humans before we can help build more bridges between species. This is the largest Zethka fleet movement in 1,000 years, Fihelveth said soberly. "Your coalition ships are spread thin defending our colonies. Earth cannot stand against such a force alone." Frank straightened his shoulders. "Then we need more coalition ships. Not just human-led ones. We need every species to start working together to see the connections we see." "You ask for a fundamental change to how we operate," said a Verex council member, "after 10,000 years of separation and specialization. I'm asking for a chance to survive." Frank replied. "Alone, we'll fall one by one. Together, we might have a chance." The council chamber grew quiet as the reality sank in. The Zethka weren't just targeting Earth or humans. They were attacking the very idea that different species could be stronger together than apart. And Earth would be the first test of whether that idea could survive. The battle for Earth seemed hopeless. Lieutenant Lisa Clark stood on the bridge of the Coalition ship Defiant, watching the tactical display with growing dread. The Zethka fleet was massive, 53 warships against the 14 Coalition vessels that had managed to gather in Earth's defense. Earth itself was blue and peaceful below them, most of its people unaware of the danger gathering above their atmosphere. 7 billion lives that would end if the Defiant and the other ships failed. "Status report," Lisa ordered, trying to keep her voice steady. "Coalition ships are in defensive formation," reported the Varex tactical officer. "The Zethka fleet will be in weapons range in 12 minutes. Lisa studied the enemy formation. The Zethka were confident, moving in a standard attack pattern they had used for centuries. Why change what had always worked? The Defiant had taken heavy damage in a previous battle. Its main weapons were offline, and the hull had been patched together with materials from 3 different species' engineering techniques. They were the weakest ship in the defensive line, but they were still here. "Lieutenant," said the Norai communications officer, "Admiral Nelson is hailing all ships." Frank Nelson's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but determined. "Coalition fleet, this is Admiral Nelson. The Zethka believe they know what to expect from us, that we'll fight as individual ships, each trying to be the hero. That's what they're prepared for. Instead, we're going to do something they won't expect. We're going to act as one unified force." He outlined his plan quickly. Each ship would take on a specific role, regardless of its original design. Some would focus entirely on defense, others on disrupting Zethka communications, others on targeted attacks. When the transmission ended, Lisa felt a strange mix of hope and fear. The plan was untested, relying on coordination between ships that had never trained together. As the crew prepared for battle, Lisa moved through the ship, checking on the mixed species teams. In the damaged engine room, she found the chief engineer struggling with power distribution. "The weapons need more than we can give," the Dularian engineer growled. Lisa looked at the jury-rigged systems and had a sudden idea. "What if we don't try to power our weapons at all?" The engineer looked confused. "Then how do we fight?" "We don't," Lisa said, her mind racing. "Not directly. The Varex can calculate precise jump coordinates within the enemy formation. The Norai can create a false sensor echo to make us appear heavily armed. The Dularians can reinforce the hull for one catastrophic impact." Understanding dawned on the engineer's face. "You want to use the Defiant as a battering ram." Lisa nodded. "We jump into the middle of their formation, let them detect our false weapons signature, and watch them scatter to avoid our non-existent attack. Their own ships will crash into each other in the confusion." "It's suicide," the engineer said. "Not if we set the ship on autopilot and evacuate in escape pods just before impact," Lisa explained. "The timing would be tight, but possible." She returned to the bridge and presented her plan to the crew. There was silence when she finished. "None of us could do this alone," she told the mixed crew. "But together, we can be unpredictable in a way the Zethka can't comprehend." One by one, they agreed. The plan was desperate, but it might work. They began preparations as the Zethka fleet drew closer. Admiral Nelson approved the plan, incorporating it into the broader battle strategy. As the Defiant's crew prepared the ship and evacuation procedures, messages came in from other Coalition vessels. Each had developed its own unconventional tactic, combining technologies and approaches in ways never before attempted. The Coalition fleet was not acting as individual ships following a standard battle plan. It was becoming something new, a unified force with diverse capabilities and unpredictable strategies. As the first Zethka ships came into range and opened fire, Lisa gave the order to begin their desperate gambit. The Defiant's engines hummed as the Varex navigator calculated the precise jump coordinates. "For Earth," Lisa said quietly. "For all of us." The Defiant vanished in a flash of light, reappearing seconds later in the heart of the Zethka Formation. The battle for Earth had begun. 3 days after the battle for Earth ended, John Miller stood in the rebuilt Galactic Council chamber. The room was packed with representatives from all 27 species. For once, they were not sitting in separate sections but mixed together, talking in small groups. John, now wearing the uniform of an admiral, watched with quiet pride. The Zethka surrender had been announced an hour ago, the first time in their 10,000-year history they had known defeat. High Counselor Xalveth called the meeting to order. "This day will be remembered in our histories for many generations to come," she began. "The Zethka fleet has withdrawn from Council space. Their leadership has agreed to peace talks." Cheers filled the chamber. John spotted Lisa Clark among the crowd. She and most of the Defiant's crew had survived their daring plan, which had scattered the center of the Zethka Formation and created the opening the Coalition fleet needed. "We asked what humans do better than any other species," Xalveth continued when the noise died down. "Now we understand. They build bridges between specialists. They see connections where we see divisions. Their adaptability isn't just physical, it's social." She gestured to a document on the main display. "The Council has voted unanimously to grant Earth full membership, with a special designation: Mediators of the Galaxy." More cheers erupted. John thought about how far they had come since that first meeting 6 months ago, when the Council had looked at humans with disappointment. "Furthermore," Xalveth continued, "we have approved the creation of a permanent Coalition fleet, with mixed crews from all volunteer species. Admiral Miller will oversee its formation." John stepped forward to speak. "Thank you, High Counselor. The battle for Earth was won not because humans are special, but because we all work together in new ways. Every species contributed something vital." He gestured to the Varex and Dularian representatives. "Your precision jump calculations allowed the Defiant to split the enemy formation." He nodded to the Norai. "Your sensor echoes confused their targeting systems." He continued, acknowledging each species' contribution to the victory. "This is the future we can build together," John concluded, "not as 27 separate specialists, but as one unified community that values all our different strengths." After the formal ceremony ended, John found himself on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Galactic Coalition headquarters. Through the large windows, he could see ships of all designs docking together. Some were being modified to house mixed crews, their hulls showing sections built with different technologies. Kate Howard joined him, smiling. "Not bad for the species that couldn't answer what they do best." John laughed. "We just needed time to figure it out." Eterni, the crony philosopher, approached them slowly. "You know," she said in her musical voice, "in all our long history, we have valued stability and specialization. Change came slowly, if at all. Then humans arrived, and in 6 months transformed how we see ourselves and each other." "We didn't mean to cause such disruption," Kate said. "Disruption can be valuable," Eterni replied. "You showed us our blind spot. We were so focused on what each species does best that we never explored what we might do together." Outside the window, a new ship was arriving. The first built specifically for a mixed crew, with the name Unity Aya on its hull. "We're not the strongest," John said quietly. "We're not the smartest or the fastest, but we understand what it means to be part of something greater than ourselves. That's what humans do better than any other species. We bring others together." Across the stars, on worlds once isolated by specialization, a new era was beginning. On colony planets, in research stations, and aboard ships, different species were learning to work side by side, sharing their knowledge and strengths. It was the most human revolution of all: cooperation. And as John watched the diverse crews moving through the station below, he knew this was just the beginning of what they could accomplish together.